We're going to the phone line now to speak to my first special guest. Rab Buchanan played Andy in Gregory's Girl, and he's on the line right now. Hi, Rab.
Hiya, how you doing, Ross?
Rab, tell us about your first introduction to Bill Forsyth and the process of how you got the part in Gregory's Girl.
The youth theatre used to meet at the East End of Glasgow in Bridgeton, and like we used to rehearse our own wee shows and things like that. And one night, this guy turned up, and the director introduced him as Bill Forsyth and said, he's a filmmaker, and he wants to make a film with you. And we were sort of, aye, right, yeah, that'll be right. But he kept on coming along. He came along every Friday night. We got to know him really well. He got to know us, and we all became good pals, really. And then one night he said he was wanting to make a film. He had been writing this film script, and he needed some ideas and, you know, some fresh ideas and things like that. So we started doing improvisations and writing wee skits, wee sketches and things like that, like the scene at the clock where Gordon's waiting for his first date.
Yes.
That was written by Douglas Sanikin for a show that the youth theatre did. And it was a wee sketch called First Date. And there was quite a few other wee ideas that we helped out and we gave to Bill, really. But that's how it worked, and that's what Bill was like. He had applied for money to the BFI, and they were coming up to see and meet us, and we had made some videos. This is 1978. We made some videos, and we did some improvisations, and we performed wee sketches for them. And they were saying, "Oh, that's brilliant! You know, we've had a great time. You're a great bunch of folk. You know, I hope we can help you out." But unfortunately, when it came to it, they couldn't help us out. So we didn't get the money for the BFI to do Gregory's Girl. But then he turned around and says, "Well, look, do you still want to make a film anyway? Because I've got all my filmmaking pals and they're geared up, they're ready to go." And that's when we started working on Sinking Feeling.
Right.
Basically the same ideas. We gave him ideas, and we did wee sketches and things like that. And he went away and he wrote the script, which was pretty good. And basically from that, he got money to do Gregory's Girl.
Right.
My part was written for me. Gregory's part was written for Gordon.
Right.
Douglas Sanikin's part, all us young guys, all the folk that were in the youth theatre, like Alan Love, the photographer, Billy Greenlees, the cook, Sani, the girl that changed in the phone box, Carolyn.
Yes.
We were all in the youth theatre, and one of these parts were written for us, which was quite special, really unusual, I guess, as well, you know. And the same for that Sinking Feeling, really. We were just giving him ideas and character names and things like that, and he came up with the script.
It's so unusual for the cast to have so much of an input to the script, and it just shows the generosity of Bill as a director.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, he had been a documentary filmmaker up until then. Now, 7 or 8 years ago, I was asked to present Bill with a BAFTA, a Scottish BAFTA award, which I was really pleased about. And I believe that what happens is that whoever receiving a BAFTA, they ask the recipient who they would like to present it to them. And Bill gave them my name and said, "I'd like Rab to do it."
Wow. And
on the evening when I gave him the award, what he said was that I was the first actor he ever directed, you know, and he says that on the first day, like when he gave me my first lot of direction, I said something like, "I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about, but I think I know what you mean." Apparently I said something really stupid like that. I met, is it Armando Iannucci?
Oh, yes.
And he says, "I remember sitting in a wee cinema in Ashton Lane watching that Sinking Feeling, thinking, oh, so you can write funny things in Glaswegian. That's what I'm going to do."
That's incredible, and what an honour, and to have a part written for you, to be invited to the BAFTAs to present the award, and then to be told that something you did on screen inspired some of the greatest comedians of the country today to do what they do.
Absolutely. I work in a music venue, and a couple of years ago they had oh God, I can't remember the guy's name. He did some programmes on the 80s. It'll come to me. He's an English broadcaster, but and he's a big fan of Gregory's Girl.
Right.
He did a night in the venue that I worked in, and I went through to introduce myself and meet him, and he just looked at me and he went, "You're joking. I can't even... That's you? Oh, God, what's your name again?" And like he did a whole programme about Gregory's Girl and stuff in the 80s. He was a big fan of the 80s music and 80s films and TV and stuff like that. And again, just meeting him and talking to him, and it's really, it always surprises me how well it's actually been received over the years, And I was round at my pal's a few years ago one night, and his daughter and her pal were in. And when I walked in, I never noticed that this wee girl just clamped up. And when they left, my mate Simon says, "See that wee girl that was there? Her favourite film is Gregory's Girl." And she must have been about 13 or something like that,
That's incredible.
It always amazes me just how well received it's been, and how important I think it is to a lot of people. It seems that the older I get, the more I get recognised.
I remember you telling a story about one time you get chased down Socky Hall Street.
Aye, they were just drunken guys, a whole team of drunken guys, and one of them recognised us. It was me, Sani, and Caroline Guthrie, and this team of guys recognised us, and they started shouting at us, and we sort of moved quickly on, and they were getting faster and faster, and eventually they just started chasing us halfway along Socky Hall Street. I think, one of the things that caused that was it was really, really unusual at the time to hear a Scottish accent on the screen, especially something as silly as Gregory's Girl, if you'll forgive me. But I mean that in the respect of the only other stuff that you had seen, Scottish film or Scottish TV, was Peter McDougall stuff, Just a Boy's Game, Elephant's Graveyard,
yes,
any of these things that were just, it was all about the violence, and I think that's how initially Sinkenfield did really well, and laterally Gregory's Girl, because there was no mention of violence in it. It was all just really gentle, really silly observations on people, but it worked an absolute treat, But I think because it was quite unusual to hear Scottish accents on the TV at the time, that made a big difference.
I mean, I think that it's something that the Scottish film industry needs more of, is films like Gregory's Girl, because it seems to be that there's not enough feel-good comedy films from Scotland. And
you're absolutely right.
And when you look at the sitcoms that are on just now, there's some great talent out there. That Scott Squad, which is on at the moment, is just fantastic. There's some really funny actors in Scotland.
There's a massive talent up here. When we did Sinkenfield and Gregory's Girl, the biggest thing we did, I think, was give the Scottish film industry a good kick up the jacksie, which I think Britain in general, I think, needed that kick at that point, but definitely Scotland, because there was nothing happening but the TV stuff, the Peter McDougall stuff and things like that. So that was really important from that point of view, And it was great for Bill, who was known as a documentary filmmaker, and all his pals that were like cameramen or sound guys or lighting guys or whatever. They wanted to do something as well, And now some of these guys, like Mick Coulter, who was the cinematographer on Sinkenfield and Gregory's Girl, he's doing stuff in Hollywood all the time. All these guys, most of these guys are doing really well elsewhere, just not in Scotland,
Have you completely retired from acting, or would you go back to it if the right role came along?
I'd go back to it like a shot. I get, I'd love to be doing more acting. The last thing I did was Fast Romance with Carter.
Yes.
That was the last bit of acting I did. Anything else that I've done since then has been, film festivals, going and having a chat about Gregory's Girl or Sinkenfield and stuff like that, which is great fun. I really like that. I really enjoy doing that, But no, I tried a couple of years ago to get an agent, and there was a girl involved with Sinkenfield and Gregory's Girl who now runs an agency, and Bill Forsyth says, get in touch with her, let her know that what you're wanting to do. So I did contact her and I had a chat with her, and she said, Rab, I'd happily bandy your name about, but I can't even get work for my own clients,
Right.
So that sort of fizzled out, unfortunately. I'd love to go back to it.
So you're available. You're available if the right role comes along.
I'm available. If anybody's looking, I'm available, and I'm cheap. Cheap. I bought Lion Brew and a fish supper.
There you are.
I'm quite happy for a couple of hours,
Now, did you ever see the international version of Gregory's Girl with the dubbed voices?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of your replacement voice?
Not a lot. I think I put it off after a couple of minutes. There was no point in watching it. Because it changed everything about the dialogue. It made really funny things not funny at all.
Right. That's why I can't watch it with the dubbed voices for exactly that reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did the same with Sinking Feeling as well.
Oh, did they?
No. Well, maybe 10 years ago now, maybe a wee bit more. They brought out a DVD of Sinking Feeling, and it was put out by a company called To Entertain, which is part of the BBC World Service.
Right.
So they had no excuse for it. If you buy a movie nowadays, you've got language options.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing like that on it. It was a DVD, and it was a dubbed version of that Sinking Feeling. And everybody but one person I know that bought it took it back. So eventually they recalled them. They just took them off the market.
Right.
And the Ricky DeMarco did this big rant in the Daily Record about it, saying how disgraceful it was to take, such an iconic piece of art, he called it, being an artist, and really it's abusing it like that. Absolutely right. But apparently the company, who are part of the BBC World Service, or Worldwide Service, it said, well, it was for the American market. No, I'm sorry, but I'm sure there was more people in one street in Glasgow would want to buy it than the whole of America.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't work. That was really disappointing. But a couple of years ago, the BFI, they reissued it. They restored it, the original soundtracks and things like that, which is absolutely brilliant, because with that Sinking Feeling, if you're listening and you go and watch it after this, turn it up loud and listen really carefully. Because when I go to these film festivals and they ask me, sometimes I get asked what I watch, what I like about the films now. And when I watch Sinking Feeling nowadays, I'm remembering what's happening off camera, and
mm-hmm.
there are some bits in the background where you can hear people just pissing themselves laughing.
Really?
And that's just members of the cast or the crew just, having a laugh at what's happening.
Yeah.
And again, from start to finish in Sinking Feeling, I've got a big grin on my face. I'm just smiling all the way through it, It's really good like that, There's lots, obviously, being in it makes a difference, but it evokes loads and loads of memories.
Yes.
And I'm remembering what's happening behind the camera at this point, or who's away doing what at that point, And sometimes when I've watched it, I've thought, well, there's not a bad bit of acting going on in there,
Yes.
So there's some acting going on in there. It's not all silly situations and, daft dialogue. There's a fair wee bit of acting goes on, which always surprises me. And if I watch Gregory's Girl nowadays, it's really weird. Remember the Children's Film Foundation movies with Keith Chegwin?
I do, yes.
I keep expecting Keith Chegwin to jump out from behind a bush or something like that every time I watch it now. Because they used to turn movies like that out for the British Film Foundation.
I know what you mean.
Obviously not as good as Gregory's Girl, but it's just one of these things, and again, it sort of makes me smile,
Yeah. And it's funny because we were talking about the dubbed voices in countries like America, and this is an international radio show. We are going out worldwide, so there'll be a few Americans tuning in. I know there's a few American fans of the film, so they're going to be totally surprised when all the actors come on this show and talk in their own native voices. They're going to think, "Who the hell is that?
Well,
who's that?"
Any of the American friends listening, if you're putting it on at a film festival, give us a shout. A bottle of Iron Brew and a fish supper, and I'll be there in a shot.
Look at that. He'll come to America. That's a must. We must set that up. Now, how did the success of the film change your life, Rab? What was life like for you at that time?
Well, it never really changed my life. I mean, I got recognised. I remember the first time that Sinking Feeling was shown on TV. It was BBC Two's Film of the Week in 1981, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, 80. I was working in Cumbernauld at the time. It was a Sunday night, and I remember going to the shop the next day, on the Monday morning, and it was like these scenes that you see in the westerns where, they go into the saloon and everybody stops and looks at them. And that's exactly what happened. I went in for a pint of milk and something, and I walked in and it was silence. These folk just staring at me, with their mouths wide open. And it was like, pint of milk, please. Got the milk, paid for it, and these people were they couldn't say anything, their jaws were dropped, And
how did you feel? How did that make you feel?
Well, when I got outside and thought about it made me feel really good. It was just a wee bit strange at the time, But I mean, I got more and more recognised, which is great. Which is, it's a great feeling when people recognise you. And some people just want to say hello. Oh, how you doing, Ross? Oh, you were in that Gregory's Girl. Absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Other people want to have a chat about it, and they might, I've had a few folks saying, oh, hi, how you doing? Oh, it's great to see you. I like your work, or I follow your work and things like that. So that sets the conversation at a different level.
Sure.
And I've got about three or four really good pals that I met through them recognising us, So I'm not averse to making friends out of it, As I say, I've got a couple of really good pals, and I'm just friendly with them purely because they stopped us in the street.
Wow.
To recognise us and chat to us. And it turns into a big long chat, and then you end up going for a pint or a coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of really good pals that I would never have as pals if they hadn't recognised us and walked up to us in the street. And it's a great feeling. The night in Glasgow when they showed the 30th anniversary, at the end of it, we all went round the corner to a pub, and there was me, Gordon, Sani, Carolyn Guthrie was there, Tony Whitmore that played the reporter in Gregory's Girl.
Gordon, yeah.
There's quite a few years in this pub, and there was music going on. And at the end of the guy's song, the guy stopped and says, "Listen, I don't know if you realise this, but we've got most of the cast of Gregory's Girl in here, And we got a big round of applause and things like that, and we got a free drink."
Brilliant. Next time you get into a pub, there'll be a can of Iron Brew sitting in the bar.
Aye, and of course, the thing about Iron Brew is that they declined to sponsor that Sinking Feeling. That's why at the end of Sinking Feeling, there's a wee dig when we talk about breaking into the Iron Brew factory and filling up a tanker and driving it to Spain.
I love it.
No, it was just a wee dig at Iron Brew. But having said that, Paddy Higson, who was one of the producers on Sinking Feeling, she ran Black Cat Studios over in the East End of Glasgow. And you remember Halfway to Paradise, it was called. It was a sort of arts programme. It was either Channel 4 or STV. It was quite popular. It was really well done, But they had me in doing a piece about Iron Brew, because Black Cat Studios were opposite the main factory in Glasgow. So they had me doing this thing about trying to find the secret of Iron Brew. So I was in the factory talking to, interviewing folk, sneaking about, getting into the boardroom and things like that. But I never did discover the secret of brew.
I've got one last question for you, Rab. The question you probably get asked most often, do you have a favourite line from Gregory's Girl?
A favourite line to Gregory's Girl?
It could be one of your own, it could be somebody else's.
That's a difficult one, because I had all the best lines, That's a hard one. It might be the tits bum fanny the lot line. I've got people wandering along the street and they'll point at me and they'll go, "Oh, tits bum fanny the lot." I did one of these. I did a wee film festival a couple of years ago down in Ayrshire, And the guy that was interviewing me gave me a T-shirt, and it says "Tits Bum Fanny the Lot" on it. So I wore it to work the next day, and everybody laughed at the management, and they said, "No, you can't wear that to work, Rab. I'm sorry." So that may well be my favourite line. Tits Bum Fanny the Lot.
Listen, Rab, it's always a pleasure chatting to you.
Not a problem. Any time, Ross.
Thanks, Rab.
No worries.
Cheers,
Absolutely.
mate.
Thank you. Cheers, Ross.